I start most lectures with music. Before the lecture begins, in the 4 minutes before lecture begins, I start some song that relates to the lecture of the day. For instance, in fluid mechanics, if we're doing pressure-driven flow, a natural selection to start the day is Queen Under Pressure. There's so much in that song that relates to fluid flow by pressure, even though I think they're singing about something else. I like to think they were fluid mechanicists. Or Kansas, for instance, when we were studying dissolved solute in a solvent. Dust in the Wind is perfectly appropriate. It talks about convective and diffusive flow. So once that primes the discussion for lecture, we kind of jump right in with a question that I use, Top Hat. It's a student engagement software that interfaces with iPods, iPhone, watches, SMS phones, laptops, Windows, Surface tablets. Any technology that is web-enabled allows you to participate and answer questions. It's not just A, B, C, D. There's matching, there's fill-in word answers, fill in the blanks. And this really captures their attention at the beginning. Frequently, I try to gauge where the students are at the beginning of lecture, but putting on a sheet that has 12 emoticons, it's different kind of faces, depending on their mood and how they're feeling about the course material. And I try to shift the mood of the students from kind of being confused faces up towards being happy faces by the end of the lecture, the material of the day. This was really important a couple weeks ago. We were continuing to do shell balances. We look at the momentum, mass, flux into small volumes. And then at the beginning of lecture, the majority of students were in the, oh my goodness, this is too much stuff. But by the end, the distribution shifted towards the top. So this is a really good way that I like to use the internet and web-enabled devices to constantly keep a dynamic understanding of student understanding. Let's see. I try to relate as much as I can the material in the classes to everyday life experiences, so that you can have the subconscious working on problems and thinking about these things without having to really work at it. In thermodynamics, there's a lot of great opportunities to do this because we're all headed towards thermodynamic death due to entropy generation in the universe. And if you think about when you're walking around outside and you think about radiative heat transfer, heating up of the earth, the lost energy that's just dissipating into space from the sun, and also in smaller control volumes thinking about the flow of energy and mass into and out of these things, you start to just generate a natural intuition for the flow of energy and entropy in a system. Or for fluids, a lot of things has to do with the passage of momentum and mass through control volumes, and you define these control volumes with unit normal vectors that are perpendicular to the surface. And it's really important that you understand dot product calculus when you're looking at fluid mechanics. And so I really encourage the students to think about the world in terms of different coordinate systems and define every surface, every situation they're in terms of the unit normal vector that would describe the surface you're looking at. So for instance, looking outside the window here, you'd have a unit normal vector pointing out, and if there was any permeation of material through that window, you would have that dot product with the vector that denotes that flow of material. We can do that right now in this room with energy transfer. In the classroom, you have the doors open or closed, you create different types of systems, and you can draw a control volume around the door. So when I do this after class, I'm really just excited to see my students walking around the campus like this, pointing out at different things, trying to define the control unit vectors. But then I take it to the next level where you just find a stress tensor, which you have to define perpendicular to the direction of flow and then know what direction of flow it's acting on. So with the stress tensor in fluids, you have all sorts of directions, and you have to think about how those relate to the control volume you're interested in. So it's just a joy to see the students, after they leave my classroom, trying to work this into their everyday life, just gain a deeper understanding, a richer understanding of how those processes work.